what things need to be fixed still, and and what things we think we want adjusted, like balance wise. So I do have things that I know people have spoken about, so we're going to talk about those. Plus anything else people can think of, and we can talk about, why are certain things the way they are. If they can change, I'm always open for feedback. Certain things may not be able to change because of just the way balance has to be, but we'll go through all that. So let's start off with NPCs. So NPC's been kind of like a roller coaster over the last couple of weeks. Um, One thing I want to again strongly advise that if you do end up taking an unorthodox approach to taking over an NPC, and it's obviously not intended to be that way, that is considered an exploit. And those things or bugs or exploits should be reported via an admin ticket so that we can fix it. And it levels the playing field for everyone. There was a situation with the Borg cube, and I don't know. I guess it's been going on since people started farming Borg cubes. We found about it late, and we've taken the Borg cube out for now until we can fix it. But that kind of stuff needs to be brought to our attention right away. And just to further clarify what I mean, if you don't have to attack a Borg cube and defeat a Borg cube in order to, or an NPC in general, in order to take over said Borg cube, then that is obviously not intended on the server, guys. You're meant to shoot down the Borg cube and then take it over, not, yeah. Also, if you do encounter an NPC and say the NPC, you're like, oh, wow, look, 35 seconds, I took over that NPC. That's probably not intended on the server as well. So that kind of stuff, please bring to our attention so that we can rebalance and fix and find why it's been acting that way. So besides that, we've updated some of the mez code. I think the cleanup's working a lot better now. I'm going to be pushing that change next maintenance cycle to all the other servers since it seems to be working in 13. And the shield issue where shields were sporadically not turning on, or beacons with NPCs, has been also corrected. So that's going to be, that change has already been made. There's been various concerns across the board from everyone. Everyone's skill is at a different level, and everyone's group of people they play with. Some people are solo or dual, and some are like full-fledged fleets, right? Obviously, like any game, you attack something with a fleet of people, it's going to be easier. You do it solo, it's going to be harder. Duo, harder. So finding a balance that doesn't make it too hard for single, solo, or duo players, and not too easy for full fleets is always a balance. That's a pain in the butt to achieve. Uh, you know, if like, let's think just basic logic here. I reduce difficulty of NPCs 50%. Now people can solo them no problem. Guess what the duo people get to do? And guess what the trio people get to do? They can hammer out things, 500 times faster. And then that becomes an issue because now they're progressing at an exponential rate versus the solo or dual players, which are progressing at a much slower rate. So it kind of, the balance is that it balances out like across the board. That being said, the NPCs are going to be going through another update. Mainly the tier 5 and tier 6s. Their difficulty level is going to be going up. And the lower tiers is really what I want to talk to you guys about, because I had people did bring up a lot of concerns with the lower tiers, saying that for a lower tier, it's too difficult to kind of take them over. And not so much maybe that it's too difficult, but they keep encountering another spawn. So they, they're fighting it for 15 minutes. They finally take it. Then another one spawns, and then, they have to like run or something. So what I was thinking to do for the lower end, like tiers 1, 2, and 3, we'll leave fours and we'll leave fours. So like tier 2, 1, 2, and 3. We could reduce the amount of weapons on them to make them less impactful, is one approach. The other approach I'm toying with is, so in Mess, which is modular encounter spawner, which is the mod that like every server uses to spawn NPCs. Well, the way that works is there's 2 kinds of spawn groups, they call them, or 2 conditions that have to be met. There's something called a space cargo ship, and then there's a random encounter. Both of those have their own timers. So the way it's set up now is those 2 events. If you're flying around randomly and you encounter something, that's probably going to be the random encounter, which then creates a bubble, invisible, around the point of where it spawned for 75 kilometers in a bubble. If you stay within that radius, no other random encounter will spawn. There's a timer for like an hour. So you're kind of safe if you farm within that 75 kilometer bubble. Now, there is also the space cargo ship spawn, which is just a spawn that happens periodically. The random encounter is the one where you have to be moving. So it sees if you've traveled a certain distance, and if you travel a certain distance, then there's a chance that it may spawn something. It does it by travel distance. The other one is just if you sit idle and you just wait, and something will spawn. And then as soon as that spawns, it has its own bubble, 75 kilometers. So nothing will spawn for that space cargo ship within that 75 kilometer bubble. But there's a chance you can get 2 spawns, right? Because the bubbles are unique to each other. So you have a space cargo ship that says, oh, 1 hour timer, nothing spawns in 75 kilometers. But then you have another timer that hasn't gone off yet, and that's the other one. And the other one has a potential to spawn and create another bubble with 75 kilometers. So then that's why people are getting 2 NPCs at once, or sometimes they get 3 on the more rare occasion. And that third one is basically another random encounter. It's because you've traveled outside of your 75 kilometer bubble. And because you've done that, now it opens you up to another spawn. So that being said, there are tactics you can take. Like as soon as you spawn an NPC, make a GPS marker, and then stay within 75 kilometers of that GPS marker at all times. Then you're safe. You're not going to spawn another random encounter because you're in that bubble. Then if another one spawns, that's the space cargo ship timer. Then that's the maximum you're going to get. I would say make another GPS marker because that creates another bubble. And then you want to stay within that sweet spot. So yes, a little complicated, kind of a pain. Or we just make it easier. And we just, I can look into removing one entirely. So maybe we just keep random encounters and we don't keep the other one. So that basically, as you fly, there's a chance something will spawn, create that bubble, but then there's no secondary kind of timer. So really, only one will ever spawn as long as you stay within that 175-kilometer bubble. That makes sense to you guys? I know it's complicated.
One problem is if the bubble is where it spawns versus where the ship is, after something is moving, that you're going to move out of the bubble just trying to catch the ship.
You're not going 75K trying to catch a ship, though.
Yeah, okay. 75 kilometers, you got to be warping to go that distance. And even if you warp at like warp 1 or 2, that's warp 1, that's 75 seconds, which is like a minute and a half out of going in one direction of warp. You know, if you're doing warp 5, it's a lot faster and such. But you're not warping typically. If you start the encounter, you're not warping around, you're fighting. So the strategy would be drop a GPS marker the second your battle starts, and then just stay within 75 kilometers of your GPS marker. And then if we remove the other spawn timer, then that means that only one will ever spawn in that one spawn bubble, and as long as you stay in that bubble, you're fine to only fight one. Unless in the future, obviously, NPCs are going to have different. They'll be like a Borg cube with a fleet of drones after you. Like that may be multiple NPCs, but that's intended. That's not. That's one spawn timer because it's one kind of encounter.
What about the NPCs that run?
Well, that's the thing. We would have to. It's either we make them easier, or we drop one of the two timers.
Just don't.
Well, the NPC running is entirely different. That's if you destroy the AI control block while it had thrust override engaged. It's going to take off on you regardless.
Do they still run?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Though,
yeah.
If you destroy that AI control block and it had thrust override engaged, it will absolutely take off on you.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking about.
That's entirely different. That's just due to the AI control block was issuing orders when it died, and now the thrust override is engaged and it's going to take off on you. Best way to combat that is try to time when you're taking out its AI control block. If you see it it's starting to slow down to like make it turn back towards you or something, that's when you want to shoot it and try to take out disable it.
And that's also a MES thing, guys. So that's how MES works. So the only thing we've found that I potentially could stop that, but then it makes it way too easy. It's like, oh, as soon as the controller's down, we can depower the entire grid or something like that, right? But then that just makes it way too easy because chances are you destroy that AI block well before the ship's actually severely damaged, and then that means you just win because it depowers. So that's not a route we want to go down at this point. So think of it as a design challenge.
Well, I'd point out that by the time we get the shields down, the AI control block is disabled. We've already won. It's just a matter of time at that point.
Right. But then that's exponentially amount of time, right? You're going to go from, you got to think too, I'm not here, laughing at people playing the game in their misery. Like I'm not doing that 100%. The game is also about like difficulty balance, right? If I made everything super hard or super easy, then what super hard no one wants to play. Super easy everyone wants to play for a matter of 15 days and then they get bored because they have everything and they stop playing, right? Any game that you guys play, when you have a sense of achievement, that's when you continue to play. If you're like, oh, like that moment you took down that first NPC, you're like, yeah, victory. The moment you took down that first Borg cube, you're like, oh yeah, if you took down the Borg cube in 5 minutes and you just farmed 20 of them in that hour, does that really feel like a Borg cube? Do you feel like you achieve something, or do you feel like you just grinded to get stuff, to build stuff, and then in 20 days you don't want to play anymore because you have everything? So that's the challenge I face as the game creator and game loop creator, is that it's tough because there's so many people with different abilities and styles and talents, we'll say, in space engineers. So to balance it, so everyone's miserably equally is kind of like the goal, because you can't make it too easy or too hard for one way or the other. Otherwise, yeah, that's just game balance dynamics that I'm always battling. So yeah, anyways, long story short, we're not going to do that at this point. We're not depowering the ship. I think I personally, this is what I think. I want your opinion. That's why you're all here today and we're doing this town hall. I think the best approach is honestly to leave the NPCs kind of the way they are, minus the new updates that the Rock King's working on. But we remove one of the timers so that the only timer that would trigger is the random encounter timer or space car. I can't remember. It's one of the two. The one that does it by distance. So you travel a certain amount of distance, then it potentially activates a timer. So an NPC spawns. If you stay stationary, nothing will, and nothing generally would spawn because you're not traveling. Or one may spawn, but once you kill that one is not going to spawn again unless there's like a server restart or something. So those stationary kind of NPC random spawns won't really come, and then the only ones that will come are the ones when you're warping around trying to get one to spawn. That's what I think the best solution is. But what do you guys think?
I would vote against anything that makes the NPCs easier.
Yeah, like they're pretty well. They are a lot tougher than last year, but yeah, I'd leave it as it is. It gives you a challenge, doesn't it?
Well, that being said, keep this in mind, guys, too, right? The NPCs that we've issued now is the first kind of batch of NPCs. Like it doesn't stop at tier 6. There are going to be harder NPCs coming in larger capacities. Like I mentioned, we were going to do a Borg cube encounter where a Borg cube spawns and maybe 5 drones will also spawn. So that's one encounter. So those are going to be more difficult, and also based on you're flying with a fleet, more threat you're generating. You're not going to get the basic Borg cube anymore. You may get the Borg cube with the 10 different drones flying at you, right? So the difficulty, there are more NPCs coming with like different things that make that more difficult, but the challenge is creating a progression line so that basic players to the more advanced, there's like a ladder that you climb, if that makes sense to you.
So, sorry, if I may, what's the point? So, as of right now, there's nothing to fight over, right? So all we're doing is we're teching up. The first stages of tech is completely useless because nobody's going to go PvP to take one ship, right?
Well, they did when they started the game, but people progress past that tech level, so it becomes obsolete. There's a lot of people still flying around with Tech 1, Tech 0.
Yeah, but any strategic objective that currently doesn't exist, but there's nothing in the early game that we were fighting over. There's nothing in the mid game that we've been fighting over. So you can add all this linear progression to the tech and the systems and stuff that we're getting access to. But if there's nothing in the meantime for us to fight over and lose the tech that we currently have, there's no sense that we need to go and hunt the NPCs in the first place.
Well, you guys should be amassing your stockpiles so that when the territories do come out and people start fighting, for territories and sub-territories. Like right now, Nimbus and Korma, the Borg planet, those are kind of open. People are just there. When the subsectors or territories are added to the subsectors, those are subsectors. So you actually have to claim those as a alliance, and then you own it, and then you have a radar, and then you have lots of opportunity to blow people up trying to get to the planet, which is one of the limited places that have the Dysonite. So that gives the mid game. Unfortunately, that was delayed. I know we've been out a month now, but no one's a stranger to all the issues that I've been working on, trying to get everything stabilized, which we're in a decent spot right now. But those territories, you're gonna be getting the subsector territories, which are like mini territories, or like little versions of the big one, and then the big ones are the Dyson spheres, which we'll talk about that later today, those mechanics and how that's gonna kind of work out.
Well, I mean, I'm only speaking for myself and, a couple of my other faction mates when we, talk about this stuff, but I don't know that amassing is the right word. I know some people are having great success in getting worthwhile spawns, but with the frequency that trash NPCs spawn from our perspective, the tier 2, the tier 4, if you have a specific amount of time, it's not productive to get the tech you're after.
Okay,
I don't know if anybody else has experienced that as well, but I spent last in a ship that I know has enough threat to spawn a T6. Myself and a faction mate flew around for an hour last night and spawned a 2, a 4, and a 4. And even towing the 4 around spawned a 2.
Yep, and we've experienced that too, where it's like, oh, there's another tier 2, warp off and reset and try again.
Mm-hmm. So
the shield bleed through is annoying. After one good fight, I have to go back.
It feels like your NPC spawner is passing through a random number generator.
No, well, it is kind of. This was a change from 2.0 to 3.0 that when you're able to spawn tier 6s, tier 2s and tier 4s have a chance to spawn. So that's why the 2s and 4s are spawning, and it's so that the point is, if you're flying the Enterprise, massive flagship, doesn't mean that you're only going to experience warbirds and Borg cubes, because it's space. Anything could spawn and try to pick a fight with you. But I see your point that, if you're flying for an hour and you're trying to go for a tier 6 and then you keep getting tier 2s and 4s, it could be annoying. So if other people feel the same way, I'm totally open of making modifications in that area.
Well, realistically, if I'm flying around in a ship with gel packs on the weapons, I'm not going to fight anything that doesn't have elite tech, because it's not worth the damage I could take, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also got to manage your most valuable resource, which is time. Not everybody has a limited amount of time to throw at the game. If you only are able to jump on for an hour or two to go out and do some hunting, then it should be worthwhile.
Well, yeah, and I say that knowing full well that I'm fortunate to have a lot more time than a lot of people, and I'm still feeling that frustration that the time that I am playing is not being as productive as it could be.
So I don't think it's a bad thing that the 2s and the 4s are necessarily spawning. I just feel like they have a much higher weighted average of spawning. So like I fly around in a ship again that can spawn tier 6s, and I'll get 2, 4, 4, 6, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 6, and it's like, so I spend, whatever that is, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I get two fights that I actually won. Now I'm not opposed to fighting the 2s and the 4s, because common tech has its place. Rare tech has its place. I'm kind of a pack rat. I like having big numbers and stuff. But I don't want to spend all day hunting ships that essentially, like you said, you're only risking exotic tech to get common tech.
Right.
To play advocate for the other side of the coin a little bit, if NPCs are too much or too wildly, at least by comparison, to be able to get tech and stuff compared to those that prefer to mine. Some people don't like hunting; it's not fun for them. But if they go off mining
get
and
out into space and risk some tech to fucking do shit,
well,
hunting
it's not
should
a
be more lucrative than mining.
Yeah, plus
well,
it
it's
doesn't make
well.
it
Hold on, let me
harder
finish.
if
Let me
you
finish my point though. Some people like mining. Like I personally like mining. There's a number of people in the Federation that just prefer mining. It's not that it's a fear of risking tech or having to repair a ship. It's that it's not fun to do for everybody. So if you have NPCs that are, wildly more lucrative, I'm not saying it shouldn't be more lucrative, but if it's too wildly more lucrative, then people who prefer to mine and spend their time mining can feel like they're just wasting their time playing on this server because they'll never be competitive, or they'll never be able to hold a candle against people who just hunt all day.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let
and
me ask you this.
we so
You were
hold on, guys. So this has been an age-old situation that's come up since 1.0. The balance between mining to progress versus fighting to progress. So I'll just say right now that fighting to progress will always be more lucrative. That's just because it's risk versus reward. Now, in 3.0, we have closed the gap versus 2.0 of that, how lucrative mining is versus and fighting NPCs, and we're continuing to do that. That's one of the changes that that's coming up in our next big update or next maintenance cycle, is going to be to close the gap a little further. But when I say close the gap, it still means that fighting will always be more lucrative, because again, risk versus reward. Also, when the maelstrom opens up, it opens up a lot more ores that you can get, that people who were forced to say go on planets to get. You can now get them in the belt. Now that belt is going to be a very hot spot for PvP. So people that are mining, it would be a joint effort. You may have miners there with an escort, right, to protect them while they mine and that kind of stuff. So it's a different kind of situation that's going to bring up. But in general, fighting NPCs will always be more lucrative, but we are closing the gap between the two. And by closing, it just means bringing closer. It's not going to ever be equal. It will always be more lucrative, decently more lucrative to fight versus. But I hear what you're saying, Raptor, and I've heard it from many other people. A lot of people like mining, and that is part of the game. In the past, the gap was huge, where mining was not worth it at all compared to fighting, and we are bringing that gap together by changing around what rewards you get from an NPC, but also by increasing mining ratios for people that like to mine. So
Hey, Zarg, may I add something to that as a player? So I'm a big miner, Raptor. This is Raven. I've got anybody you talk to will tell you that like when it comes to mining and stuff, I do it for relax, right? It's calming. I enjoy it.
Yeah,
but I was, and you can ask the guys in my group, I was able to progress the same rate as some of the guys, most of the guys hunting, except for one, as far as tech's concerned, by mining. Literally did not do any hunting, built my full elite base, everything just from mining, right? So there's still a purpose behind it. It just depends on which play style you prefer, right? Like if you want to mine like I prefer, mine. You know what I mean? Until you get to the point where you can hunt and then make hunting just a secondary little fun thing. But to what Sarg's saying, the whole purpose behind it is you're going to lose before you gain when you're hunting, period. That's just what it is. So if
especially
you
with the
change
new
your
bleed
mindset,
damage, right? You're always taking damage now.
Raven, That's I completely agree with that, and that's been my experience as well. And I do agree that that hunting should be more profitable than mining. If nothing else, it requires an additional skill level, because like anybody can mine. That's not really a skilled trade, you know. Hunting, I think is, and you have to do some more engineering with it, and you have to time things. You have to be able to chase things down, hack them, take them over. Sometimes it requires more people if you're getting, you know, it's there's more to it. It completely makes sense. The had or experienced so much of a problem as it is on this one, as to, you know, like I'd only really heard, you know, pro NPCs be easier and more profitable. So I'm just throwing the, you know, the word in for the other side that it can be off balanced, which Sarg, you already mentioned in 2.0. Per hour played, it was 27 times more profitable to hunt than it was to mine. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be more profitable to hunt,
This
but
isn't
not
2.0,
27
my guy.
times more.
You will lose
Oh, I
your
know,
ship
I know.
out there in a quick
No,
second.
I
We
agree.
did it.
100.
We
This
did it.
isn't. None of this is a complaint against the current setup at all. I'm just
Yeah.
voicing the other side
Raptor,
of the coin. That's all.
he's just worried that we go back down that rabbit hole, which he doesn't want
Yeah,
us to go.
that's
And
For sure.
and we're not. I promise, we're not going down that rabbit hole. And one of the big updates to the NPCs is that the tech levels are being streamlined, so they're being equalized. So, you know, if you fight a tier 4 Romulan ship NPC, it gives you, I don't know, say 2,500 rare tech, and then you fight, I don't know, Federation tier 4, and it gives you 3,200. We're gonna be equalizing those numbers so that any kind of tiered ship that you fight will be roughly equal to another ship. So when you do spawn a tier 5, you know that tier 5, it may be harder or easier that you determine that, but lucrativeness will be equalized. Um, and then where that changes will be the Borg stuff, because they're more like a tier 6 plus. They'll be more difficult and more lucrative than other tiers.
Can I right quick? So on the mining versus hunting aspect, the issue is not that hunting is more profitable, less profitable, whatever. It's the consistency. When you're mining, if you need platinum, you have 10 GPS points to go and get platinum. You know when you show up, it's going to be platinum. You know every time you run that drill, it's going to get platinum inside you. When you go out and hunt, you're looking for exotic tech or rare tech or common tech, whatever it is. And it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, I think I would add to that
Oh,
we're talking so much about time.
Something different.
I don't know if Horrible's done talking or he's just losing connection.
Yeah, you're losing connection, Horrible. When no one's talking over you, they thought you were done because it stopped.
I do agree with you. Horrible. The part, anyways, that I could hear. I'm not saying that 3.0 is. I'm not suggesting that it's imbalanced as it is.
Well, I would just ask, like, we're talking so much about time management. So, Sarg, what is your idea of how much should a person need to spend in game on one path or the other to have a ship or enough ships or enough equipment to be able to participate in the forthcoming Dyson Sphere, PvP, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, that will be. So the new Dyson Sphere territory mechanics are completely new, right? It's nothing like 2.0.
Sorry. I'm not asking about the mechanics. I'm asking about how much time are you expecting a player to play to have a Tritanium teched out ship that's going to be able to participate against other players and the NPCs?
Oh,
that's kind of hard to measure. It's a skill issue thing. I mean, like, you know, I could probably Crimson could get to Tritanium in a day's play, like 4 hours. He'd be flying around in a Tritanium.
Yeah, but
it's
then,
a skill issue.
I did the same thing with the miner. It's different play styles. You can't compare the two.
The goal was about 3 weeks. It was from starting off on the server, being an average player, not you know, one of our more experienced people that maybe have been experienced
Power player
people that have played in previous versions of STC, like if you're completely new to the STC universe, then you're at a severe disadvantage. It takes roughly about 3 weeks to be like, I don't know anything about STC, their mechanics, how weapons work, and build up, where to go, that kind of stuff.
No, and well, but so that, and really talking to Fix It and Raven, I'm not coming at this from a skill issue point. I am certainly not the best player on the server, but I know my way around here, and I know my way around getting the mining set up, getting an NPC down. My complaint is that I am capable of doing it by myself with a ship without taking much damage, or with a suitor. We're not getting the opportunity to do so because of how the spawn randomization is going. I can do it. I'm just not able. I'm not being given the opportunity to do it in the time that I have to play at the time that I have to play.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by the spawn randomization? Because to my understanding and from the experience, just today alone, I've bagged 4 different tiers.
Are
with
you
the same
saying
shit.
that
No, he means that
sometimes
he's
you're only
going
going to
after
get
an
one?
elite, and he's getting a lot of all these tier 2s and 4s spawning, but he should be spawning 6s a lot more often.
But
So
that's the fun of it, though, right? Like that's
Yeah,
the
it's the
sliding
randomization.
scale.
Yeah,
Right.
I know it would
So-
suck to come in for your 2 hours.
so right
ahead.
now, guys, right now it's the weighting is set to equal. So you have an equal chance to spawn a tier 2, 4, or 6. So I definitely, again, this is a new mechanic. I'm definitely open to adjusting the weighting. So we could say 2s will spawn at a 25% of the time. The 4s will be 50%, and then the other 50% will be 6s.
So it's like a mechanic limitation then basically within the mod itself. So, and I think that'll help people to understand how that works too. Like it's not a sliding scale is what you're saying. It's a weight based system around X amount of ships, each holding X weight.
Oh, no. It's a weighted system, isn't just like
It's fixed. It's not dynamic.
It's a probability, right? Think of it as a probability percentage. So we can assign a percentage of chance that it could spawn. So we could say 50% chance that a tier 6 will spawn, a 25% chance that a tier 2 will spawn, and we could say another 50% chance, or the remaining 25% remaining chance a tier 4 spawns. So therefore,
right, and that's based on how much threats generated by your ship.
No, it's just a randomizer.
It's like
so
not a threshold.
So say that there's 4 different types of ships that can spawn, right? Tier 2, tier 4, tier 6. There's one of each. Okay. If I assign 50% to 6, 25 and 25 to 2 and 4, then that means that if a ship spawns, an enemy spawns, 50% of the time it will be a tier 6. And 25% of the time it will be a tier 2 or a tier 4.
That helps me now, because now I understand. And I'm kind of like the rest of them minded, where I was wondering why I was getting lower when I know that I should be generating a higher threat score, and it was because my brain was stuck on like threshold rate, or rating. Like if I hit this threshold, I'll get these to spawn. If I hit this threshold, I'll get these to spawn. So I think understanding that part helps with the confusion, because now I understand. Now it's now the grind is there. I get it. I like that.
You would need a sliding scale on the weighting to the ship that spawns it, so a higher level ship is going to be weighted more towards the higher level.
Right, but now you're not expecting something that it's never going to happen. You know what I mean? It's a random number. It's based on weighting. There's no threshold, so now you can change your mindset towards it. As you're not waiting for that tier, that elite ship to spawn. You're waiting for a ship to spawn with a chance to get an elite.
Right, and there's threat still required, right? Like you still need a certain amount of threat even to hit that logic of the weighting system of it still looks at threat to say, oh, a tier 6 has a possibility to spawn. Mez is very complicated. But anyways, right now, okay, so right now it's set to there's equal chance. So if if tier 1, sorry, tier 2, tier 4, and tier 6, and an enemy spawns right now, 33.33% chance anything will spawn, and that's why it's all like randomly equal. Like sometimes you get in tier 2s, tier 4s, and one tier 6. Sometimes people have RNG on their side, and they'll get 3 tier 6s and then 1 tier 2. Right? It's a 33.33% chance right now for across the board for tier 2, 4, and 6. Once you've hit the threat level of tier 6, like if you're capable of spawning a tier 6 because you have enough threat, it's a 33.33% chance to spawn any of those. So what I can do is I can drop those. So I can say 25% chance for a tier 2, 25% chance for a tier 4, and a 50% chance for a tier 6. Does that sound
51%? Everybody knows statistics aren't 50-50. Wink, wink.
50.01%?
I think it's a solid solution, especially now that I understand how it works.
I agree with that too. That the higher your threat score, the more consistently you should be getting into that threat level.
Mm-hmm.
I may have missed this, but did you touch on perhaps adding a cost point down the road yet?
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
We're still talking about NPC stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I'm gonna add that. I wrote it down. I'm gonna add that to my list. So we'll tinker with the idea. Announcement will be made when changes are done, and then you'll know that the time that has changed. And then I encourage everyone. I need feedback, right? If I don't hear something, and by feedback, like make a ticket and say, hey, this is my experience. Like I want to hear from you guys. I can't monitor in-game chat and general chat and all these different chats. If you make a ticket, then it'll be brought to my attention, and then I can see, hey, so this is what's going on right now. But it's hard for me to make balance changes and see where pain points are by perusing random idle conversation in general chat until something of substance kind of pops up. So please make tickets to provide that feedback after these changes are made, and let me know, like, hey, it's better, hey, it's too easy now, hey, it's still hard, or something like that. Okay, so that is the NPC stuff. So there is also going to be, so just to close off NPCs, tier 5s and 6s are being redone, and they are being, the difficulty is being increased on them. Not so much the difficulty like, we're adding 10 more phasers. The difficulty to suit them without effort. So they're going to be having some internal turrets, which will shoot P players who just try to, drill a hole and go straight for the control block or, nano or something like that. Also, if you notice, there was an update and there are new nanoviruses. There's called scrappable nanoviruses. Not sure if you guys seen that. So those are for 2 reasons. One, if most players will put a nanovirus on their ship, right? Like just for on their own ship, just because they want to do that block limit of 2, so that enemy players, like another player, can't come and drop a nano and try to take over your ship easily. They have to be able to find that nano on your ship, grind it down, and then make a new one, right? So making a scrappable version on your ship now is a tactic, because if I say I'm going to go raid, I see Ice and Duel's ship just sitting there. He forgot to hanger it, and his weapons are offline. I'm like, there you go, and I go take over his ship. I could literally just jump there, like suit spawn, get to his ship, grind down his nanos, use his components for his own nanos to build a new nano, and then I'm going to take over his ship. Now I didn't need anything. So in order to avoid that, if you build a scrappable nano, then if I'm an enemy and I grind down your nanovirus, I'm going to get scrap, which then does not help me make a nano of my own. I have to still bring a ship, ferry my own pieces, that kind of stuff. So it adds another level of, protection to use the scrappable on your own ships. Also, that being said, tier 5s and 6s are going to be equipped with scrappable versions. And that's for a similar reason, so that you can't just go to, a tier 6 ship, go to where the nanovirus is, because it's always in the same spot, and you know where it is now, and you're going to go there, grind it down, use the materials from its own NPC to build a nano to take over the ship. This wasn't so much an issue in 2.0 because we didn't really have a bunch of nanos on those ships to begin with, but now we do, so it changes the gameplay. So anyways, those are going to be grinding to scrap in tier 5s and 6s only, and ongoing, like higher. There's also going to be kind of like a random element to the nanos. So tier 5s and 6s, there's going to be a few different versions of the same ship, potentially. So if you spawn, I don't know, say you got a tier 6 Dominion Vanguard, and you're like, oh, I know in the bottom left wing is where the nano is, right? Because it's always there. So what you do is you just, take down the shields, run to that nano, drop it, done. Then you got to unfarm. Now there's going to be multiple ships of the same type. So there'll be like 3 or 5 or whatever number different versions of that Vanguard. And those different versions are going to have nanos in different spots. So you won't know what version of the ship is spawning. So you don't know exactly where that nano is going to be every single time. Now there's limited, so you can learn the 4 different or 5 different spots the nano is going to be, and then you can check the 5 spots. But again, an element of difficulty to get those. That's the NPC kind of update. Is there any other questions regarding NPCs?
While we are on the topic, I wanted to ask, is it intended that Borg cubes always try to ram you? Because on 2.0 I only hunted Defiance and noticed that Borg cubes kind of always try to ram you at full speed. I don't know if other people noticed
It's not
that.
intended.
Okay.
No.
It might just be. Well, I was gonna say it might just be due to inertia. They're such a large vessel and they weigh so much that they're not gonna slow down on a dime. They're basically a freight train coming at you.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I figured it was. Plus, they run out of hydro pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely not intended. They're not really supposed to be ramming. But again, yeah, the sure mash and inertia of that ship would definitely help that situation of it ramming. But I'm gonna make a note regardless to double check the code. For cubes ramming.
I think what they're referring to with ramming, given the sheer number of cubes I've farmed, is when it turns. So it when it's turning, it's still going in the other direction, but it spins around and the sides being a cube, they catch you, right? So it comes across as a ram. It's trying to turn and face you, and that's it.
Okay.
Like we've experienced it with tier 3s and 4s, like it turns and clips you, like maybe just too close or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's the same thing I think's happening. Cube's heavy. It's all heavy armor. It's super heavy.
And that being said, no, we're not making cubes made out of titanium.
Oh, that's a shame.
People are like, why? They should be titanium. I'm like, right. So you take over one Borg cube and you can make an entire fleet of ships because you have more titanium than you've ever wanted. With one kill. Like, there's a reason why they're not made of that.
That also kind of gives miners a little bit of an exclusive purpose too, whether that's intended or not.
It is intended that way. Mining has always been like, I enjoy fighting, but I love mining too. There's a therapeutic thing to mining. We're just going into a belt, and grabbing some stuff. Like, sometimes it's nice just to do that. I like both. So my
Have you mined in this belt? Because it's not put your coffee and put it on autopilot and go to sleep anymore.
Yeah, because NPCs spawn.
Yeah, you need to have eyes in the back of your head.
All you do is jump away, let them follow you away from your roid, and then work back to it. You'll be fine.
Or dig right into the middle of it and just wait it out.
Don't try that. It didn't work out for me. Yeah, the torpedoes care nothing about the roid.
Wait, sorry, that reminds me of just not to jump us back to the spawn timer, but I have been observing that the NPCs that spawn in the asteroid belts stick around for much longer when you jump away than they do when you're out hunting.
You got to go out of the concealment range. That's
Which
all.
is 15.
Like,
I've gone 50 and mined for 10 minutes and gone back, and they're still there.
No, concealment isn't 15. Sync distance is 15. There's difference.
Is it more than 50?
I'll check and let you know right now.
Because if it isn't, whether I said the right terminology, I was still outside the range, and
it's 75. Okay. So go farther than 75K, and then it'll be concealed after 75K. And it's not instant. It takes 3,600 ticks.
Well, all I'll say is I think everyone here has had an NPC poof in front of their eyes when they were within 10 kilometers of it, but the
1 minute
asteroid belt guy sticks around for a long time.
So go further than 75 kilometers from him for a minute, and it should hit concealment. But
it'll disappear well before you get to the concealment area from my experience. You just got to jump away. That's all.
Well, so there's new cleanup protocols being added. Wait, what sector were you talking about?
11.
Oh no, okay. Because Sector 13 have been beta testing new cleanup protocols. So it 5 minutes past. Hold on, let me double check the numbers because this will affect it.
Won't moving at 75 kilometers then be moving out of the spawn range and trigger a new spawn? Because you moved?
No, the concealment. Sorry, the cleanup timers. So if you spawn a ship, for it to clean up, you have to hit certain criteria. Because right now, like, ships sometimes are spawning, sometimes they're not despawning when they shouldn't despawn. So I've been playing with those settings to clean up the cleanup timers, and they are set to. It seems to be working in Sector 13 well. Let me try to find what I wrote this down. Sorry, give me 1 second. Sector 13. Storage. Okay, so the way they're going to be after the next maintenance cycle, when I do the update, push an update, because servers have to come down for this stuff, is $100 kilometers. So if you move 100 kilometers away from an NPC for 5 minutes, the NPC will despawn.
That mean the poofing is going away before they, when you're out hunting?
It's supposed
I
to.
was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
You battle it for like 25 minutes and then it just disappears in front of you.
Try
Oh, I'm
fighting them in Sector 13, because the change is already live in Sector 13.
Give that a go.
So try hunting in 13.
Try to fight in Sector 13.
Yeah, not recommended.
Why?
Because those Orions are touchy about their space.
Oh. Sector 13, unowned 25. Yeah. So it's supposed to do that. 25. Max spawn attempts. Is this right? 25. So the bubble is 25 kilometers for the timeouts. So the bubble that's created when one spawns is 25 kilometers. Should I increase that? I think I said 75. Do you want to increase the timeout radius to 70? Well, it's a radius, so really 25 is really 50 kilometers. Is 50 kilometers enough for you guys the way it is now?
I mean, I haven't had a real problem with them disappearing in front of me when I'm engaged with them. If I wait out to like 10 or 13 or whatever, away from them and they can't target me, then they'll disappear within like 3 minutes. But I haven't had any issues myself in 13. So if you've made changes to 13, they're working. Just saying.
Okay, good. Yeah, I made them like 4 days ago.
Yeah, I've bagged a bunch of NPCs the last 2 days. I haven't had any issue of disappearing.
Okay, good. We'll keep it that way then. Okay, so we'll move. Oh, and the last thing I'm just going to mention is, yes, I'm looking into the weapon issue where weapons are shooting through voxels. They shouldn't be shooting through voxels. That I'm still trying to
that's
find
like
out.
a weapon core thing, right? And it's been that way for ages.
The setting says do not shoot through voxels, but it still shoots through voxels.
Well, on that on that note, they also shoot through your own ship, or can
shoot through your own ship.
I haven't had that. Like,
I'll do a screenshot next time I see it.
Oh,
but
is it a phase cannon you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, the phase cannons do that. It's the way weapon core animates the because know how they like disappear and then they come back out and they move around like a hinge. That's been an issue that I've been trying to fix, but it's a visual thing. It doesn't really damage your ship or anything like that. It's just visually looks.
I've actually taken damage from it. That's why I mentioned it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that changes things. I've never heard of the people taking damage from that. Let me write that down. Weapon core phase cannon.
Now it might be because I was maneuvering while I was firing, but I definitely took damage from it.
Boxes. Shooting. Okay.
Next time that happens, try a fixed ship, because I remember there was fake damage at one point.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
too. Like it would be fake damage. You did a fixed ship and then it was fine.
So
Yeah,
on the fixed ship note, just because that just came up, sorry if you want to make note, my rotors are still disappearing when I fix ship, and I've lost so many to the point now where I'm pretty sure STC's stealing them.
Yeah, it is official actually. SA has come clean. He secretly steals everyone's rotors when
I
they go to
know
bed.
he's got them all at his base, man. I just want the little guy back.
As he's a rotor gnome.
Yeah, I've
But
lost
yeah,
so much when I first
if
started.
there's
I lost so much
anything
to
on
rotors.
it and you fix ship your grid on any subgrid right now, the rotor, the piston, and the hinge, it yeets the piston. It just disappears the hinge, the rotor, the piston, but leaves whatever was attached to it. So if you put a beacon on it and all that, and you've got it like you suggested, it'll leave your little mass and stuff there, but your subgrid that was connecting it goes bye bye.
Is this always an issue, or did this start coming up?
No, it never was an issue like this in 2.0. Yeah, because I keep
Was it
like
always like this in 3.0, or was this like a more recent thing in 3.0?
Yeah, it's been this way since the beginning of it. We noticed it because we put like you'll put like a panel or you'll put something on it, and it helps, with your sync with like
Yeah.
battleships. Soon as you fix ship, it's gone. But now if you have a rotor that doesn't have anything on it, just the head, for some reason it won't disappear on you until you place something on the head, which is pretty
I bet
tough.
you because that panel is unnamed and it's under 20 blocks.
Nope. You can put a beacon, small head, yeah, beacon, name it. Like I did everything in my testing to try it. Crimson, he's done it. Like Dema's seen it. You can literally fix ship right in front of the grid. It'll disappear every time. But the one without anything on it stays. So named all of it.
Weird.
Yeah, I'll second that one because every time when I first started, I used to take the starter ship, build like a little mining arm to make it easier to
Yep.
mine asteroids and stuff. And every time the ship was hangared, the server restarted. I changed servers or did a fixed ship. Everything was pruned, and I just stopped after losing like 4 subgrids. I just quit. I won't even build them anymore.
Yeah, that's when it first started happening. I'd have like a little mining head, and it would rotate for me, and I'd have beacon and everything on it. Just the rotor itself disappears. It's weird.
All right, I wrote that down. I'll have to look into what's causing that, because a lot of the code was reused from 2.0 modified, so I don't know why. Even
what server was that in? Sorry, for an 11.
It's in every server I've been in, 6, 13, 5. It happens everywhere. Yeah. I mean, if you ask anybody in here who puts one on a warship, go slap anything on your rotor that's been there this whole time and fix ship. You'll see it'll just poof right away.
Or hanger it, wait 3 minutes,
Yeah.
unhanger it, it'll be pruned.
Gone.
Everything will
Yeah.
be pruned.
Like I know a
Yeah,
lot-
you won't
lot
even get back the stuff on it that way.
I know a lot of players.
And when
rotor
I originally
drill
submitted a ticket about it. Sorry, I don't mean to talk over anybody. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. Like I know there's a lot of players have rotor drill heads on the ships, and like we never seem to have many tickets about it. Like the odd one, like it fell off or whatever. But
Tell them to fix it. You can try it in any area you want. Like it'll go away.
It was similar issue with 2.0 when you switch in the sectors. There also the rotor heads disappear when you switch the sector.
That got fixed though. Like that was because it's common to have a rotor on your warship, right? So like it's pretty easy to test.
Yeah, well, take a look. See if it's only happening on fixed ship. then it's not the cleanup system. It's got to be something preventing when you cut and paste. It's not taking the subgrids.
The weird thing is, though, is like I said, it'll leave whatever was on it. That's the weirdest thing. Like when it was happening before in 2.0, before you fixed it, it would take whatever was on the rotor. It would leave the rotor, but the head and everything else would be gone, right? This is completely reversed. It'll leave whatever you had built on the rotor and take the rotor and the head. And yes, only on big ship I've experienced it myself. I have heard people say the hangar does it, but I haven't had that happen to me yet.
Just to iterate what Sark said at the beginning, like if we don't know that things are broke, then we can't fix them.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been messaging S-Day daily. Daily.
Make a ticket. Just trust me. Don't message S-Day. He's swamped with 100 things as well, so not everything gets routed to me. Make a ticket. This way I can put it on the list, and then we can action it. Speaking of lists, I'm gonna bring us to our next section just because we're at an hour now. LE fix.
So it's just a good way for us to keep track. Like if it's in a list somewhere, then we can keep track of what's going on. Get things fixed as soon as possible.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and show you. Give you guys a little tour of the websites. A lot of people don't know how to use them or don't know what they do, and I want to bring awareness to them because they're there for a reason. So we have two primary websites right now, the wiki.stcontinuum.ca, and then we have just stcontinuum.ca, which is our dashboard. So this is the wiki that we've been remaking for 3.0. It's easier to navigate and update, so hopefully we can stay diligent on that. Let me go. There we go. So along the side here, you're going to see all the different sections. Like people ask, what are the block limits? Well, they're here, right? Per player, per grid. There's your block limits. Weapon statistics, what is like the base damage of weapons and some other settings. So people who like to min max, the data is on that sheet. We got our Discord rules. People ever wonder if they're breaking the rules, you come here and take a look. Our insiding policy that we've added recently. Onion shielding, what is that? Why don't we allow it? Ship design policy. No bricks. We're going to be adding an astrometric section, which will have maps to the sectors and, what planets have what ores and gravity levels and stuff like that. This is still a work in progress. But a lot of good information here. Plugins, how to install some plugins. What are some recommended plugins? Deuterium. What is deuterium intermix? How do you make it? Warp drive mechanics. How does warp drive work? What are the different versions? What do they do exactly? Like, there's a lot of good stuff here, especially for newer players. So if you do see people asking some basic questions, just send the link to the wiki, tell them to take a look at them. Impulse drive, mechanics, how they work. Player commands. Everyone wants to know what are all the commands to run as a player. So here's your ship fixer commands, your block limiters, your hangars, faction hanger, alliance hanger, easy GPS, some Nexus commands, right? And then your group stuff. Excuse me. Oh, I should add actually the chat function to these commands too. So a lot of good stuff here. Oh, a new alliance section, still work in progress. Alliance commands. But what I want to bring your attention to is this part mainly. On the bottom, you have change logs and bug reports. So when I make changes, like micro changes and stuff like that, I don't want to make an announcement every 3 hours because I made a tweak or something like that. So if you want to know, hey, what was changed recently, you can come here and you go to change log and then it'll tell you. So I started doing this May 3rd. So you can see May 3rd, what happened? Well, there's an MES update. We increased the targeting range to 20 kilometers for MES, adjusted NPC grids, temporarily removed the Borg cube, and we added the Borcha. And then the nanovirus, we created a scrap version of the nanoviruses and the firewall blocks. May 4th, fixed an issue, some ships, put some test code for cleanup in Sector 13, which I mentioned earlier on this call.
It's a big cheer for me on the changelog.
It's a what?
A big cheer. I think it's wonderful that you're actually typing that.
Yeah, because I want to be transparent with you guys, and I want you guys to know that, you know, I'm always working on shit, and I don't, like, a lot of work goes into this. I really hope you guys realize the amount of work, especially for like one person. And you know, constantly making changes. They're all going to be logged here as I make them. So if you ever want to see what's going on, you'll see it here. Like even today, right? So there was an issue. Romulan home planet didn't have a neutral zone for NPCs, so I deployed a fix for that. So that should be fixed now for Romulan home sectors and safe zones. And then there'll be a section here which is plan changes during maintenance. So this is something that is, let me go edit this page. So this one is so during the next maintenance cycle, and when I say maintenance, that's when like I take down the servers for an hour or two, and then I do a bunch of stuff. I only do those changes when there's, you know, a lot of things that need to be done that can't be done in a reasonable amount of time by doing it server by server. So one thing is like the reset timer. We had some people say that there's a 5-minute timer, it's not long enough. They want 10-minute warning, a 5-minute, 3-minute, 1 minute. So again, this is a change that I don't want to do on 18 servers manually. So I can do it to 1 and push the changes to 18, but they have to be offline. So this is something that would wait until a maintenance cycle to be done. The MES changes, right? So we pushed MES cleanup to Sector 13. I'll be pushing the cleanup changes from Sector 13 to all the other sectors during the next maintenance cycle, because we've had no complaints on that cleanup protocol in 13 since they added it on there. So, oops. Yeah, so stay tuned. Always look here for that. There's also the bug reports. So this is a listing of when people report a bug, so when you make that ticket, guys, and you say, hey, this is broken, I'll add it to the list. I'll say this is the list that we will continually expand on. So here you can see kind of what has been reported, and if it has been planned to be fixed. Is it fixed? Is it in progress? Is it unverified? Unverified means that someone claims it, but we weren't able to replicate the issue. So if you can't replicate the issue, it can't really fix it. But I still put it down here, so we'll just to keep it on our radar. You can just sort by the top by clicking here, and then you can see. So these ones are fixed. What warp signatures were not broadcasting previously. Now they're broadcasting, so we fixed that. Deuterium processors at one point were not making intermix. We fixed that. EPS manifold small variant wasn't showing correctly in the game. Now it is. Latinum trophy was buildable for 1,000 steel plates, and now we removed it from the game until further notice. Yeah, so on and so forth. So here's the title. There's a description and any notes kind of I throw into here. So you can always come here to see kind of what's on the docket. If it's not on here, and that's also too, if you're experiencing something and you're like, oh no, this is broken. Okay, well, come here first, go look and be like, yeah, it's on the list and it's slated, planned, or it's in progress. Okay, so it's going to be fixed. It's just a matter of time. So you don't need to make a ticket for that. If it's not on this list, then it's probably not on our radar. So then that means you should make that ticket so we can add it to the list so that we can fix it.
Watermask's not working.
What's that?
Watermask's not working.
Yes,
yeah,
that's on there.
Yeah.
Warp masking signatures. It's in progress, but keeps going out of progress because I jump into other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely will be fixed. Obviously, it's one of the features of this version of the server. So yeah. All right, so that's that. Then we have our dashboard. So we have the, oops. So this is the console. I've demoed this console before. This gives you kind of a glimpse into the game. So you just click on the sign in with Steam, sign in, and then it validates who you are and your Steam ID. So this way it shows that you are a member of the server and that any data it shows you that's personal to you, it's been validated through Steam. So it's basically only your personal Steam stuff. We have server listings, so all the different servers that are online, if they're online or offline. So you can see like 14's offline, 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 because those haven't been released yet. The rest are online. You can see how many players are in each of the servers. People want a mod listing, so here you go. These are all the mods. You can click on the link here, and that will give you the link into your clipboard. You can paste that into, any URL into a browser, and then you can download the mods or subscribe or whatever. Online members, so you can see here who's actually online, what faction they're in, and what rank they are. So if you're looking to talk to, like, I don't know, maybe you're like, I want to join the USE. I wonder if they'll look the founders online. Okay, I can go talk to him. So, whatever. Then there are some things here you'll see like 80 or 88. Don't worry about those ones. These are from tests that I have to clear out still. But yeah, those will disappear once I clean up the database. Faction listings. So all the factions, there's 141 player factions in the server right now. So you can go pull up, see all the different factions, do a search for them. votes, who's been voting, how often they vote. So you can see, like, here's Loki. Loki's been voting 21 times. He claimed 21 rewards. Leah has voted once. Right? So you can see who's been voting for the server, to help promote it, which is also super important. Guys, remember, try to vote daily, even if you don't need the rewards. It helps keep us on top of the charts and brings in new players. Yeah. In-game info. So this stuff here is like looks at you personally. So here, eventually, this is still work in progress, but you have your own kind of personal profiles, where you can do a little bio about yourself, and with a future enhancement that's coming out, which is like personal reputation system. So reputation will be not just factions, but you can have a personal reputation. So if your personal reputation is of a certain caliber, then you would be a trusted trader or a warmonger or something like that. So this is something we're still working on. Quantum hangar, this is pretty cool. So you can see what's in your hangar right now. So right now I got 2 ships in my hangar. This is the total PCU of those ships. And if I wanted to know, hey, where are they exactly? If I click here, I can save the GPS to the clipboard and I can paste that in game. So now I can see where if you don't remember where you hangared a ship, there's a GPS right there. You can just paste that into your game and make a GPS marker. And then your grid listing. So you know how you have grid lists, the command to see all your grids? This is like grid lists, but on the website. So here are all the grids that are under me as an owner, and I can see what sector they're all in, and I can see the coordinates for them. So if you're like, oh, I lost my ship, I don't know where I put it, you can come here, click the little link, gets the GPS to your clipboard, and then you can go look for it in game, or send it to someone to go look for it or something like that.
How often does this update with the server?
Very often. I think it's like every minute or 2 minutes or something.
Okay.
In the future, we're gonna have a bounty board system. So you'll be able to place bounties on people's heads, and then players, it'll track metrics like how many blocks or how many PCU have you destroyed for bounties and stuff like that. You can place bounties on people's heads, where you can get people. So if someone pisses you off, you can be like, I'm offering 5 million SC to fight or kill this guy. And then you can define what a kill is, because there's no real kill kind of in the game. So it would be like based off of PCU, I imagine. Still in the works in the planning stages. But you'd say like, I'll give 10 million PCU, 10 million SC to anyone who destroys 300,000 PCU of ESDA ships. So then it'll keep track of that, all the PCU that you've done to ESDA. And once you hit that amount, the first person to hit that amount will get paid out. Something like that. So another cool thing to put bounties on people's heads. I thought would be interesting.
Oh man, I'm getting up with a huge bounty, aren't I?
Yeah. Grok is screwed.
I welcome the challenge. Come get some.
Economy stuff. I'll be refocusing on economy once the territories are online. But we'll be using Crunch's new economy, so a lot of stuff can be done via website. So we'll demo that when we get closer to it.
Hey, Sarge.
Yeah.
On the server voting, can we randomize the loot a little bit? Because it's very lackluster. Like, I don't need 5 platinum. I mean, the zone chips are obviously cool for anybody that uses safe zones, which I don't. So there's no reward for me to vote. I mean, I'd still try to vote when I remember to, just to promote the server, but it'd be kind of cool if every once in a while I got something that actually mattered. To me, anyway, sorry, not saying that they don't matter, they don't have value, but I just don't they don't matter to me so much.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me write that down. I can put rewards, vote rewards. What I could do actually to make it lucrative and not consistent is add a percentage chance to get a tech reward. So keep voting or a plushie, sure.
Plushie. Yeah.
Or a plushie.
You know, you're gonna have like 1,000 plushies in your bed.
I'm fine with that. I'll cover my ship in bears.
Seeing we're talking about voting, is there any chance of changing the Patreon to match the regular vote so you can vote every 18 hours? It's like if I sign in at 9 o'clock in the morning and I forget to vote and I don't do it till 10 o'clock at night, and then the next night I totally forget about it, then I miss out on a vote. Or if I'm going offline at 10 o'clock and I can't do the vote.
Yeah, I can do that. So Patreon rewards, change timer to 18 hours to match vote reward timer.
You just got more chance of being able to catch both at the same time then.
Yep, no, that makes sense. All right, so again, those are the websites, guys. Take a look at them. Again, they will continuously be updated. Once I stop putting out fires and stuff and have the content out that's supposed to be out, that's when I can start working on new cool stuff, which I really want to do. But I gotta obviously get this other stuff out first. All right, so we spoke about the difficulty. We spoke about NPCs, weapons. Ooh. Oh, so just a brief thing about weapons. So there are new weapons planned. Again, as soon as territories and economy, I'll probably do it in tandem with economy actually. Some new weapons that will be coming out. One is like the famous spinal lance, which is like a ginormous laser gun. It hooks up to like the bottom of your hull and it just cuts a hole through things. So essentially, it at this point, again, subject to change, but it's going to be working similarly to a deflector, where it does the opposite. So deflector, you get a two shots, and then it has to recharge to take down shields, right? And does shield only damage. This is going to do hull only damage, so no damage to shields, but it will punch a hole through a hull kind of thing. Again, because it is super powered, it is going to be expensive and it's going to be power hungry. So, working this into your regime of how you do stuff will be interesting. I envision ships that will be designed solely with this, so that you can, when you're doing fleet battles, you have some guys knocking out shields, and you have other guys that are just basically waiting on that reload timer and dumping as much power as they can into the spinal lance to punch holes through an enemy ship. So yeah, it'll add a different element to that. So that's one thing that we've been looking at. And another one is a new kind of torpedo that I've been working on. So new kind of torpedo that launches, that it shoots out like, so we'll say 200 meters or whatever, and then it explodes. And then what it does is it shards like 50 shards out, and those shards are homing, and then they attack. It's kind of hard to explain, but
It's basically it's like a cluster munition. It's a swarmer.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Not directly related to weapons, but one thing I was wondering, could we get some sort of lidar block, because the current sensor array, because it relies on sensors on the sensor block, obviously you've nerfed it down because of the performance impact it has. Could we get some sort of lidar block instead for increased targeting range?
Yes, we can. Actually, let me write that down. That was on my list, but I didn't write it down last time and it fell off my list. Let's see.
Is there
Lance.
any way to do a weapon system that increases damage based on the amount of power you can give it?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You were cutting out.
Sorry, bad service. Is there a way to make scalable damage based on the amount of power you can give a weapon? So you don't have to have 30 freaking phasers. You can do, 2 or 3, but give them more power, they do more damage.
So that gets complicated again for balancing, because if you had 16 phasers on your ship, and then we say, oh, well, you can do the same thing with 4 more powerful ones. That means that you're essentially giving 4 times the power to every phaser. And that means when you shoot that phaser, you're one-shotting blocks off the grid or more. Right? So every shot, you're destroying one or more blocks. That changes the gameplay dynamic quite a bit. If you could melt blocks that fast, then you're essentially dropping the kill time by 75% using the numbers you just talked about. And then the rate of fire would have to be adjusted, because right now you can get off several shots before they have to recharge. So, if you had a number of say 4 and say 6 shots per recharge is 612 is 28, which means that you destroy a minimum of 28 blocks or more, depending on the damage output. Because if a phaser hits the first block and then it blows that block and it's still firing, it's going to hit the next block, right? So that's a big change to do that. I can take it under advisement and look at it down the road, if we do in a bigger enhancement. So one thing I want to mention to you guys, is that this iteration of 3.0, I want to, once everything is rolled out, we're going to be holding seasons, and kind of what I envision is doing expansions onto the server. So rather than saying, well, we wipe once a year, and 4.0 comes out like we did the previous years, what I want to do is maybe every quarter or every 6 months have a new iteration that adds an expansion to the game. So where you would have some newer, more powerful blocks, maybe a new section of space opens up, right? New sectors, new mechanics are added, kind of thing. So it's not necessarily a wipe every time. It would be kind of like an expansion of the current server until we all get bored of that, and then I rework the entire thing. Yeah.
Oh, that all sounds good. I didn't think about some of the repercussions of doing the scaling damage. What are the chances of making small grids useful as far as actual damage output and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so again, small grids, I definitely want to give a lot of love to because I've neglected them because I'm trying to get the large grids kind of going because majority of players are using those. But small grids. So one of those expansions I was telling you about, like the 6-month expansion or 3-month expansion, like the major iteration update or something like that, would be kind of focused on that. So once the fires are put out, and I work on new content, one of them will be like, all right, this quarter I'm working on small grid. And what's going to happen is we're going to go through, excuse me, and rebalance all the grids, finally get proper warp drives on those small grids, make the weapons viable in some sort of combat scenarios and that kind of stuff. So small grids is definitely on my roadmap for one of the big iterations to revisit and to fix.
Yeah, that would be sweet. I just when you were talking about the Borg cube encounter, I was envisioning having a couple pilots with you in like fighters, drones on drones kind of thing.
Yeah, well, so I was working on another server before I put all my effort back into Star Trek. It was Battlestar Galactica, and I had a whole new kind of way to play the game. And small grids were actually very viable with large grids. So, because right now, like when you have a small grid and you fight a large grid, it's cannon fodder, right? And in Battlestar Galactica's world, a small fighter could carry a nuke and could do serious damage to a Battlestar, which is like a flagship. So, what I wanted to do is take some of those ideas that I had for Battlestar, since that's kind of on a side burner for an indefinite amount of time, and try to put those mechanics or build them into Star Trek so that small grids would be viable in combat with larger grids. Not solely, but in a team setting or a fleet setting, right? I thought that would be a kind of a cool idea. So I'm going to be trying to do that.
It has explosives like BMW swarms and stuff like that.
Sorry, you cut out horrible again.
So I would be cautious of warheads, nukes, that kind of stuff, because then you're looking at BMW swarms.
Nukes don't work anymore. Sarga nerfed the ammo explosion rate, so they don't do any damage really.
Yeah.
Also, with small grids, I advise that you should probably block limit them to like 10,000 or something, so that way you don't have people who build massive small grids and just create a shit ton of lag with it.
Yeah, they're gonna have their own unique block limits once they become viable. But yeah, that's a huge undertaking. So basically, you're rebuilding the game to work with small grids and integrating them. It's a big job, but that's going to be one of the major updates that gets done eventually. All right. So next on my list here was territories. So we're going to close that off with territories, guys. So how do territories work? Well, I'll give you some very rough alpha footage here. All right, I switched to sharing Space Engineers if you guys want to join. All right, so the new siege system. So the way it works is there's going to be 4 different major territories, which are Dyson spheres. Those Dyson spheres are located equal distance from each other on the map. So let me see if I can. Oh, there was an update. So, anyways, in the center, this red thing, right? That's the maelstrom. Inside the maelstrom, there is the special asteroid belt that has very lucrative ore available, as well as the transphasic ores and stuff like that. Um, in the around that maelstrom, which is like a rip in space, there are the Dysons. So see that little thing down there with the red shield around it, and there's another one down there, and there's another one. Those are the Dyson spheres. There's 4 of them, named Alpha, Beta, Delta, Gamma. And each Dyson sphere would have a special Romulan / Tholian station inserted inside of the sphere. The lore is that the Romulans and Tholians have been experimenting with Dyson spheres that they found. There was a massive explosion, and what happened was the Dyson spheres exploded and caused a chain reaction. So all the Dyson spheres, electric kind of current went to each one of them, and then created this kind of rip in space, which is in here. There's the rip. Inside the rip, once you cross the barrier and go inside, there will be asteroids all the way around here. Those asteroids have very lucrative kind of ore available to them. And the Dysons so basically these are the Dyson spheres, these metallic looking kind of objects with a special kind of shield around them that's kind of containing them temporarily. From the explosion, there was a big crater because they exploded. In the Dyson spheres, there is a hole right here. And this hole in the Dyson spheres where the actual territory will take place. And so this is where, if you played like 2.0, you'll know that there was like a station associated with the territory that gave you like super refining, or it gave you other perks like a ship printer, like a projector, instant projector, stuff like that. So in 2.0, you had to take over like 5 territories to get all the different perks. Here, you just take over 1 territory, and you'll get all of those perks. It looks really cool, actually. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It's a little bit of lag. It's a big grid. Shouldn't take this long in real production. This is just a development environment. Either that or my game froze. Oh, that's why I'm in. There you go. So this is the Tholian installation, which is inside the hole of the Dyson sphere that exploded. This thing is super cool. So inside here is a giant kind of hangar where you can come and you can dock your ships in this place, and then you can transfer materials and all that kind of stuff. Zio made this, so that's why it looks so nice. Then inside, you can come in the side here. So once you come inside, actually it looks really cool. So you go down this corridor and it spans the entire kind of cavity, which is super cool. Come around the side and come down here. And this is kind of where all the guts are. So this is where, you're going to have a whole bunch of cargo containers. You're going to have all of your assemblers, a bunch of refineries, all, tricked out, exotic or higher. And the ship projector would be attached to this as well. So basically, you'll have like, I don't know what the number was. I think it was like 25 elite refineries with full modules. I think it was like 25 assemblers, a bunch of hydrogen storage, instant projector. All territories include a radar, so you can see what's going on in your territory up to 500 kilometers.
Cool.
And some other future perks that we're going to be designing around them in the future. One of those future things is NPC fighters. So you can spawn NPC ships to help you fight in PvP combat if you own a territory. And it would cost you a certain amount of credits. So every time you use the command, it's going to charge you basically those many credits to call in a mercenary to come help you. Similar to what the SOS does now, but it'll be actually be able to be used in combat for people that own territories. Yeah, so super cool. That is what you have. And just to give you a size reference, guys, like it's huge. I think if I remember, it was still the right size. But if we take the Galaxy class ship, so if you're familiar with the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class, especially from Zio, it's absolutely ginormous. It's like basically way bigger than anything you'll ever have in game because it'll lag the server, right? It has 27,000 PCU and 48,000 blocks just in this grid, right? So that is the grid itself, but it can fit in this hangar. So you can print an entire massive ship way bigger than you'll ever build something in the server. That's how much room is in this thing. So the point of this is that you use your instant projector, right? You line up your projection, you print your ship. Your ship can be printed inside of this base, and then you can roll it out. To give you another size reference, something more reasonable, here's like an average sized elite ship that's actually in game. So it's like a quarter of the size, not even. Yeah, it's about a quarter of the size of that Galaxy class. So you could fit 1, 2, 3, 4 of these ships inside of here at the same time. And then, you hangar them. So if you look up top, there's the connectors ports and below. So you basically can attach multiple ships to this thing, doing whatever you need to do inside your territory. But super cool. Zio did a really good job on this. Did this solid. And then when you zoom out, there's our grid. All right, so that is the inside the territory. So if you look on my screen, you see all these little things that says Dyson Alpha Cap Point 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. There's going to be 16 of these per territory, and these are different cap points. So when you go to a cap point, right, like this, so now I'm at my where is it? Cap point. There you go. Cap point 4. So I'm at the cap point. When you approach this cap point, the system, and I have to double check. I don't remember if it's automatic or if you have to run a command to claim it. Oh no, you siege block, I think it is. So you have a siege block on your ship. You have to activate your siege block. By activating your siege block, it will then trigger this event. And the event for this capture point starts a timer that I think it's like 10 minutes or something like that. So the 10-minute countdown. And then when that countdown hits 0, what will spawn at this point is a station defense grid. So a special grid will spawn here, and it's a defense platform with a whole bunch of torpedoes and phasers and stuff like that, and it will start shooting you. And it's invincible for the first 15 minutes of combat. After the first 15 minutes, you'll be able to engage it. And what you want to do is you want to destroy this thing, or you want to board it. So if you destroy it, by destroying it, it means that you've cut out all power to this facility. So destroyed all the batteries and or reactors. So it's depowered. If it's depowered, that means you win that claim point. If you board it and you manage to get to the central kind of nexus, you can hit the big red button, and the big red button will turn off the grid, which depowers it, which means you also win. So there's kind of two ways to do this. You could do a combination. You could just go in with full ships and try to blow it out of the sky, or you could do both, or you espionage of some way. Have a cloaked ship coming in, trying to like sneak on board, get through the onboard turret defenses, hit that button while in combat, and deactivate the grid. So two different ways that you can kind of win that, which would be kind of cool, I thought. So not just space combat, but one of the things I want to do is I want to bring back a lot of like first-person shooter combat to the game. So I got a whole bunch of things planned for that stuff. That's going to be a big update. Like away teams, boarding parties, special raids that you do. Boarding a derelict Borg cube, having Borg drones spawn trying to kill you, but you have to like fight them by using your suit and like phasers and stuff. Like it'll be first person kind of combat or third person combat kind of style. So I got some stuff coming there too. But anyways, so to take it over, you to depower it in some way, either by boarding it or destroying it. Once you do that, you then own this capture point. Then the next capture point, you do the same thing. So you got to do this. So there's going to be 16 capture points per territory. You need to own majority of them. So if your group or alliance owns 7, then the ownership of that territory changes hands, and now you own the territory, your group. This is a lot more fast-paced combat. where in the past you had a 24-hour wait and had massive battles. This one will be a lot more smaller battles, and there'll be a lot of PvP here because people are going to come. They're going to trigger these events. You're going to see it. You'll be notified in Discord that your territory is under attack. You can go, defend your claim markers, get your guys together, whatever. You can fight multiple back to back or at the same time. So if you had 20 guys online and you want to say, okay, 10 guys go to this point, 10 guys go to that point, let's do 2 at once. So you can take over a territory faster that way by dividing and conquering. And yeah, so basically territories potentially will change hands a lot more frequently than they did in SC2, because SC2, people owned a territory that like never lost it. It's very rare that it changed hands. But this new mechanic is for more organic PvP, so that basically there's always going to be some sort of combat. If somebody wants to fight somebody, just go and start a siege, right? 10 minutes, wait the timer, whatever it is, 15-minute timer. Then you start your siege and start taking over territories. You'll be sure as hell that someone's going to come fight you because they don't want to lose their territory, right? So that's going to help a lot of PvP on the server once that's released. So there's also a new mechanic as well to control who can start a siege. So, you say you have an alliance and you got, I don't know, your federation, you got 100 players, right? You got one dude that goes in a shuttle pod and he flies out into the Dyson space and he starts a siege. And all of a sudden, the Ryans get notified. The Federation's, started a siege on your territories. Then all of a sudden, the Ryans are pissed off and like, who the hell do they think they are? And a big war breaks out. Meanwhile, it was some dude who never should have started that siege and caused all this drama, right? He, did it on his own accord and whatever. So, anyways, long story short, faction leaders can issue a special component to players that they trust as like leaders. And if you have this component, you can then start a siege. So basically, the faction leaders can control who is going to siege who, or if they're authorized, kind of thing, like an access level, you're authorized to actually start a siege. So this way, you'd only give that to trusted people, right, in your organization. So that's also going to be a thing. There's a special siege token that leaders can issue to certain players so that they're authorized to start a siege on behalf of that alliance. Does that make sense to you guys? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just letting it all soak in right now.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
So okay. So then upkeep. So there is an upkeep that is required, which is the Dysonite. So you need, like in 2.0 you had Latinum that you had to keep funded on your base. You have to keep Dysonite kind of funded on your Dyson sphere. Dysonite is like a special biofuel that fuels the Dyson sphere. If the Dyson sphere is not fueled, it runs out of power, you lose claim because everything turns off. So that's the Latinum equivalent for upkeep. What else was there? think that's it. So yes, that's how that works. Oh, siege windows. Sorry. So 2 of the Dyson spheres will share a same siege window. For that's going to be 5 p.m. Eastern Standard, -5 GMT to 12 midnight, which means that you can only siege capture points within that window of time. And that's going to be, say, for alpha and the beta, the alpha beta Dyson spheres, we'll say. Then you have gamma delta Dyson spheres, which are going to cater to the EU crowd. So they have 2, maybe 1. I have to do a census of how many EU players we have. But they would work on a different one, which would also be 5 to 12 midnight, but it would be negative, just GMT. So that this way, no one will be having to stay up till 3 in the morning in their local time zones to fight something and lose sleep and work.
Damn it.
You know, it's not ideal for some time zones because yes, it goes into your workday, and you know, if it's 5 p.m. Eastern starting, that means it's 2 p.m. Pacific starting, and that means it ends at 9 p.m. Pacific, right? So it can't cater to everyone, but I did a lot of research on like time zones and what would make the most sense, and that range of time it makes the most sense. Any questions?
I have one on the individual cap points.
Mm-hmm.
Say, Federation decides to attack, the Orion sphere and start capping points, and they get 6 points in by the time we're able to respond. Are we able to go and back cap the points they've taken, or are we just trying to scramble to defend what we have left?
I have to double check, but I think there's a 24-hour timer on each of the cap points. So when a cap point has been taken, it can't be retaken for 24 hours. Yes, I'm pretty sure it's 24 hours. So basically, if you can stop their progress, but then they potentially can like, so say they've taken, I don't know, like you said, 6 of the points, and then you stop them from proceeding, or say they ran out of time, right? Like they can't take anymore because they have to go to sleep, or the window closed, right? Because the windows does close if it hits 12 o'clock Eastern and you're doing an NA attack, the window closes. They can't proceed any further. Then within 24 hours of whenever the capture point was captured, you can then take it back. So that's when, if you wanted to, if you're Orion and you want to take back that territory, you basically want to make sure 24 hours later, you want to make sure that you're there at that territory waiting to take it back, because then you can take it back and then they have to kind of restart, right? Like they have to take more territories. So basically there's going to be constant battles because people are going to be taking territories, probably not all in one sitting. And then, timers are going to be going off. And then the next day you want to go and take back that territory. And if like for example, say I took over 3 capture points from the Dyson Alpha, right? Then 24 hours later, you're probably going to get your guys to go get those back, right? So 24 hours later, if I wanted to start this combat with you guys, I would be there waiting. So 24 hours later, I'm going to be there sitting to say, hey, they're probably going to come try to take back this thing. So I'm going to be waiting to kind of attack it, type thing. Each combat is also timed, so the battle can't go over an hour. So if you start a battle in a territory, a capture point, that battle will only be a maximum of 1 hour. If you exceed the 1 hour, it goes back to the original owner. So you have 1 hour to take over the capture point, basically. Yeah, you need, if there's 16 capture points, you need to take over 9, right? So if you take 1 hour for each and there's only an 8-hour window, then you're not gonna make it in one night, like one sitting. You'd probably have to wait till the window opens again to start again, to continue your assault. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just means we'd have to be more on our toes. We can't back cap something while they're trying to capture the last point. Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, I'll double check into that. I can't remember if. Yeah, I have to double check if the capture points. I don't remember now what we set up. It's either the capture points have a 24-hour cooldown, or they have no cooldown, and you can take them right away. And the territory has a cooldown. That's right. I'll double check. It's either that. It's either they have a one day cooldown after ownership change, or they have 0 cooldown, so that you can just keep fighting back and forth. And then the territory for sure has a cooldown. So if a territory changes hands, then there's 7 days of peace. So if you take over the Dyson Alpha, then you own it for 7 days before things can be sieged again. So basically, you have some time to play with it, because that was one of the concerns early on, was that people were worried that there would be too much combat, and that I took it over today, I'm gonna by tomorrow I lost it again, right? So we put in, I believe, a 7-day window, a 7-day timer, saying that you have 7 days of peace once you take it over.
No such thing as too much combat.
No such thing until there is such thing. Well, this came from people, PvP
PTSD
people.
go burr.
So I have a question. I wonder if anything has changed about factions and alliances and who can access this. Can you transfer it during the 7 days, that kind of thing?
Sorry, transfer what? Transfer the ownership of the Dyson Sphere?
Yeah, so let's say Grokter gets Saucy. He pushes the red button, right? Now our 3-4 person faction has a Dyson Sphere for 7 days. We can't put that to good use. Can we allow the larger Cardassian Union faction access? Is there any function like that?
I don't think so at this point.
So it's only per faction. So I mean, that does present just a little bit of a problem in that, if only one faction is able to take it and keep access to it, then some of the alliances, they have a lot of smaller factions in it, so it kind of disadvantages the other guys and doesn't give them a reason to want to help their other faction, their other allies, to actually go take something that they're not going to be able to get any benefit from.
No, they can still use it.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
They can still use it. It just ownership. They don't. There's no mechanic to transfer the ownership to someone different. So they'll be able to use the facility and what's on the facility, So like they could in 2.0, right? As you, essentially you're opening it to share with all, and anyone can use it. So also remember when subsectors open up. So I don't know if you guys have been using this. A lot of people, there's been a lot of feature increases. A lot of features have been added, but people forget about them. The quantum slipstream drive. Has anyone used that?
We did a test. It popped an error. Maybe it's because the territories aren't. Or, I don't know. But we ran into errors.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. That's a good ticket to make so that we can track that. But I will make that. I'll write that down. Let's see. Quantum slip stream error when using. So, well, essentially, when I fix that and it works, the slipstream will allow you to warp instantly back to your home territory or your home sector, right? So if your Federation Earth is your home sector, you can use the slipstream at any point anywhere in the galaxy to go home. When you own the new territories, the sub territories or the Dyson territories, that opens up additional jump points. So basically, you can now slipstream if you owned Nimbus and you owned Earth because you're Federation and you owned, I don't know, Dyson Beta. Now you can instantly jump your fleet from Nimbus to Earth to the Maelstrom to your Dyson. So big perk on that to maneuver around. So that is something you always want to probably keep your eye on and utilize in your builds. Another reason why you want to own territories, right? So if you think of the map, Orion is in the very top right corner of the galaxy, top left, and the Maelstrom is on the very far right middle. So for me to travel at maximum warp, it's going to take me a while. But if I owned Nimbus as well or Korma, I could jump from Orion's homeworld to Koroma instantly. And then I could take a short warp over to the Dyson area and do mining or whatnot. Or if I owned a Dyson, I could go directly from Orion homeworld to the Maelstrom.
Not to beat a dead horse, but that's your faction, right?
What do you mean your faction?
The alliance, wouldn't it? Like the alliance or
It's the alliance. The entire alliance gets the perk.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyone in your alliance, and technically, if your alliance teams up with another alliance, they can share your perks. So the Federation teams up with the Orions, and then basically they can share their slipstream points. So Orion owns a Dyson and Orion owns Nimbus. Federation owns nothing. If the Federation has an alliance with Orions, for the duration of that alliance, they can then jump their slipstream to those locations as well. It's handled by friendly status. So as long as that alliance, as long as all those factions are friendly to the owning faction of that Dyson, then it'll allow them to jump. Any other questions?
Do we have a rough ETA on territories then?
Well, it's currently what I'm working on. I'm hoping. Well, I'm still doing my testing in the environment that you just saw, so that is, as long as the mechanics work as what I just described, we don't need any rework on the code. You know, it should be relatively soon. My goal is within 1 to 2 weeks to have them all of them up, subsectors and the Dysons and the Maelstrom should be
As
all
long
online.
as long as we don't have any major updates from SE as well.
Yeah, that for sure is going to break everything. You can bank on it. We have so much code on the server that it's ridiculous. And every time Keen does an update, they change. So what essentially happens is when Keen does updates, they change the API, it's called, to like the code that we have to reference that's native to space engineers to do these special things. They change how it functions, those methods, or they change even just the name. Like the last update they did, the last big update, they literally changed the name. They changed no functionality in the whole code. All they did was change the name that you have to call to use it. But that then broke everyone's mods because they changed it from like, super method to super duper method. And that's it. Like just to fuck
isn't
up
there an
people.
update in like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
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 So I'm hoping, obviously with that server will be down and I'll be the only one fixing it. So you can expect it to go down though. I highly doubt nothing will break. That has never happened.
Have you tried reaching out to them? Just tell them you've got a load of crazy stuff going on, and you don't want players to miss out.
Conversely, they've let some of the community members, like if you know somebody who knows Splithy, he's got it.
No. What I'm saying is, they sometimes give you like a little bit of API and NDA, so you can like sort of patch things before the update goes live and breaks everything.
Yeah. They do offer like an NDA kind of community where you can sign your life away and then they'll tell you about stuff they're working on and give you a heads up, and then you just can't tell anyone or you get sued.
Yeah, it sounds like a cult.
Yeah.
Avoid.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying they're going so far as to let people publicly beta it. So there might be a way to get access.
Well, I could ask, see what they say, see what this NDA really looks like. But yeah,
I've heard things about keen NDAs. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I heard some not so good things either. And an NDA is only as good as, like he said, she said, right? All I need is one pissed off STC member telling Keen that I said something that I didn't say, and then all of a sudden they're gonna come rain hellfire on me. Don't really need that.
Take your house off you.
Yeah, especially with this group of militant autists.
Well, I've had people lose their mind on me, telling me that they're gonna sue me personally because hate crimes and all this stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I barely even talk to you. What do you? And they're like, yeah, it's ridiculous. People are crazy. There's a lot of stuff you guys don't see that I have to deal with, not just the stuff you see. But yeah,
People are crazy, and then you've got SE players. It's a totally different level.
yeah. I've had people come out and literally lose their minds on me because I made an update to the game and they thought that I was personally building this update just to ruin their lives and I was targeting them. And I'm like, I haven't even talked to you before. I don't, I don't know you, so I don't know how you would like paint this picture in your head. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. But then a lot of times when you kind of fuel the fire, like you talk to them and try to be nice and address their issues, it fuels them even more. It's there's a lot to this game that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, just get Esday to do all your PR. Get him to like deal with these crazy people. You'll be fine. That's what I'd do.
SD does deal a lot of
Normally should
crazies.
give them that way.
So, other than that, of what I mentioned, is there any topics you guys want to talk about, or things you want to bring up? Any comments, concerns? What works good? What doesn't work good? Anything you want me to add to my list or address or look into that we haven't already spoken about?
I think the PDCs on the NPCs are very accurate.
Very accurate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like they instantly kill you.
That's a feature, not a bug.
What about like special events later on where we could like, have access to another server via transwarp or something and it has, I don't know, just different mechanics to it for a short amount of time. Just something to spice things up.
Yeah, so I was working on an idea like that with Shinobi and ring guilds back in the day.
Universe.
Yeah, it was kind of like we would have both our nexuses connecting to a single kind of point where those grids, all like your ships can meet. And then what happens is all the weapons would be tuned from both mod packs so that when they enter the server, all their numbers would change. And then this way, you're like, even though I'm shooting you with an artillery shell, it will still do a X amount of damage onto your shielded phaser ship, right? So basically it creates that balance. And then people would actually be able to like do combat and you'd have ships against ships, like that kind of thing. So there
No vanilla weapons.
no vanilla weapons, yeah. Unless, well, it would have to be, honestly, it's a project that would have to be very fine tuned for every specific server that we try this with. So considering, I don't know if ring guilds is happening anymore. I would still want to do it, so I probably will ring up another friendly server that I know. I was thinking actually talking to the Stargate Dimensions server and doing like a cross with them from Stargate to Star Trek and stuff like that. But again, that's something that would be done in that's a big change to rebalance every weapon and armor piece across two servers to match. So that would be like probably a bigger update, quarterly update type thing, an expansion update we talked about. Oh, and the ablative armor will come once I get territories up and other stuff. The ablative armor, I'll do some more testing on that, and then we'll roll out the ablative armor. If you don't remember what that is, that it's the supercharged armor that basically reskins your entire ship into this armor look, and then it gives you like 80% damage reduction to your hull. but at the cost of a lot of power. So basically, makes you a tank, but doesn't. So you can take hits, but you're probably not going to be firing many phasers, type thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's going to add a whole new way to play the game. And I can see people flipping back and forth too, right? Like you're fighting a ship, your shields go down. When your shields are down, you could be like, you know what? Flip off all my weapons, conserve the power, dump all the power to my blade of armor. Now I have 80% damage reduction. I'll wait till my shields fully recharge. Then I'll drop my blade of armor, put my phasers back online, and then you're kind of back in the fight. So, yes, time to kill would be a little longer, but then that only would happen if you actually have strategy. And timing.
Or you can have the real Chads out there that just decide to fly without shields and just like, armor brawl.
Yeah. Well, you could do that. No shields, just armor, but then it takes an abundant amount of armor power, so you're gonna have less weapons. So you'll be tanky, but you won't be able to do as much damage, type thing. So there's that balance. There's always balance.
So, actually, random question while we're on the topic of questions and stuff. Why is it that sometimes I spawn in a cockpit and sometimes I'm dead, even though there's oxygen and everything there?
That's a good question. I did look up online, and they said that there's a setting to adjust on the server. It's a player timer that like allows you to survive a certain amount of time when you're offline before it kills your body. That amount is set to 0, which is indefinite, and it doesn't. It still kills you. And then I set it to 10 for 10 minutes, and it still killed people. So I have no idea why it's doing that.
That's been a thing that's been part of SC multiplayer for as long as SC multiplayer's been around. It's I don't think there's any easy way to fix it.
Yeah, it's not this server.
Well, I mean, I get that, but and I understand if I'm gone, like if I log off and I'm dead when I come back, but just the server restarting right now.
Yeah.
I was in my grinding ship at an NPC, and I come back and I'm dead. I have to respawn, then I have to find my mining ship or grinding ship, find the NPC I was at, and then start again.
Yeah, it's an
like during a reset. I don't understand why it's happening. If I logged off and went to work, or logged off, went to sleep, or logged off and screwed around for X number of time, I would understand more. But that's why the question came up, because that short 5 minutes or less for the server to restart, I'm confused.
Well, that again, that's a space engineer's multiplayer bug issue. It's nothing that I
like. We can't control that. Like
yeah, unless I like develop some whole additional workaround where it stores your body offline in a file, then retransplants you back into a server, and it's a lot of effort to
Yeah,
it may not even work.
To be honest, is better, because I don't know if you've ever seen it when your player data corrupts and you just can't join the server, and then an admin has to get on and like basically kill your player and wipe your location data and all that kind of crap for you actually just to be able to join the server, which is a headache.
Yeah.
Just put SKs on everything. Just put survival kit, run grids list if you're far away from it, you know.
Yeah, the best thing to do is just put up little satellites. Throw up make it 20 blocks large. Put on a survival kit. Throw on a basic battery and a solar panel, and then it'll just stay there indefinitely. And then that's your little marker in space. You can always go back to.
Well,
No
you
one
don't
can
even
find it.
necessarily need the solar projector, because it's only going to be using power when you're actually in range of it. And if you're just using it for respawning, I've got plenty of them hidden inside asteroids all over the place that I just bring out and put back away once I'm done using them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I respawned on my main ship. It was just a random question I had because it just happened. That's
Just don't have a backpack full of tech.
and it
when-
happens to somebody I know who plays on
Yeah.
a regular basis. Like every time the server resets, they're dead. Whether they're in a cryopod, whether they're in a cockpit, whether they're doing whatever, they constantly are just dead.
The cryopod they should be all right.
It affects them 10 times more than it does me. But what reminded me was it just happened to me.
It never happens to me in a cryopod. Never.
Yeah, I've never had it. In a
I haven't
cryopod.
had it happen to me in a cryopod, but it does happen to them quite often from what I'm told. And I will be the first to admit that part just might be a user error. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe the cryopod's not piped to oxygen or something.
But I just figured I would touch base
Yeah.
since you're here. So
No worries. Thanks. So a couple of things I want to address. There's a message in the chat. Someone wanted to know about making Impulse components cheaper. So Impulse has been a question as of late because more and more people are using it. So people are concerned, like, one, why does it take 10 gigawatts of power to generate plasma? And how fast will it drain my plasma if I'm using Impulse? And does it drain it just as fast as it does hydrogen, and et cetera, et cetera? Excuse me. So Impulse, you have to remember some things. All right. So try to visualize here. When you are running a hydrogen ship, your hydrogen, number one, you have, I don't know, 80 hydrogen thrusters in every direction, right? Like you got 20 forward, back, up, down, left, right. You need a lot of hydrogen. So when you are using hydrogen, you're always using hydrogen. If you speed up, you're using hydrogen. If you turn, you're using hydrogen. If you slow down, you're using hydrogen. You're constantly using hydrogen. So with Impulse, Impulse is only in one direction. So you're only ever using electroplasma, which is the fuel for Impulse. You're only ever using it in one direction. So you're not going to be going through it nearly as fast as you would be using hydrogen, because number one, you're going to have probably 1/6 the amount of thrusters on your ship. Two, you're only using electroplasma when you're speeding up. Once you're at max speed, which is relatively fast, you can just drop. If you want to conserve your plasma, just turn off inertial dampeners and just coast. So if you're doing a straight line or something, if you slow down, it doesn't use any plasma. If you turn left or right, it doesn't use any plasma. It only uses plasma in one direction. So if you think about it, there's up, down, left, right, back, forward. You're only using it in a forward capacity. So essentially, you're using 1/6 the amount of what you would use in a hydrogen ship. And also, you're using a lot less thrusters because you're only using them in one direction. So that's why, number one, they're so expensive, because you don't need 60 of them, you need 10. And that's why plasma takes so long to make, is to give it value, because eventually when the economy is up, there'll be people selling plasma stations and stuff. Or you may have a grid that's solely used just to generate plasma, and you hook up to that grid and fill your tanks so that you can go on your merry way, that kind of stuff. So yeah, making them cheaper at this point, probably not going to happen, since it's still also very new. They're also super durable. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look at them, they're made of titanium, which then increases the durability by a crap ton, which then means that they're a lot less likely to break and damage in combat, right? Which then means that's why they're also more expensive. So that's the story on Impulse. And that being said, again, brand new. Impulse is brand new. Once we see it, a lot more in combat, um, that's when further tweaks will be made to it. Maybe they need to be more powerful. Maybe they need to be brought down in power, right? So we're going from there. Eventually, I'll be making lower level versions, so you'll have a uh, efficient and enhanced version, so lower level players can also use them. But right now, it's solely just elite level right now.
Question regarding the elite impulse computer core. How exactly does that function? Because it doesn't give a lot of detail on what its actual functionality is, other than it seems to dampen a lot in one direction.
Yes. So you need, again, you can also check the wiki because there's a write up on impulse there. The You need the impulse computer in order to enable the super dampening on your ship. If you don't have an impulse computer, you can still use impulse. Like you can still make electroplasma and you can still go in a forward direction. You're just never going to stop because you don't have any dampening power. The impulse computer is what calculates the dampening so that you can stop on a dime and, turn and accelerate like a fighter jet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Damn it.
Uh,
Sorry. Didn't know I was muted.
No worries. So another one was, do we have any documentation on slipstream mechanics or territory stuff? No, there's no documentation yet. I'll be building it as soon as I finish building the territory mod. Then I'll build a guide on how slipstream works and how territories work. How do you take over a territory and all that stuff? Will be on the wiki for release of that mechanic.
What's the burn range of the impulse engines? Like damage, how many blocks away does it have to be before it damages?
Oh, I don't remember.
All right, just wondering.
Let's see. I'm actually in game still.
Shift
Forget
R.
ahead.
Yeah.
What's the button again to see the further details?
Shift R. Oh, press tab again. Okay.
Shift R locks it.
Yeah.
I do it the old-fashioned way here.
Counter plus.
So right now, oh, just over. So it uses
9 blocks.
Is it 8?
Oh yeah, 8 blocks.
8 blocks. So it goes 8 blocks long. All right, so a couple last things I'm just going to mention from another person. So talking about exploits again. So what is an exploit? An exploit is taking advantage of a mechanic in a way that it was not intended to be used for. There are, there's a degree of common sense you would use to determine this. You can't document. I can't document every single method of way that is considered an exploit for every single feature of the game, because that would just be endless. So you need to use a degree of common sense to think of if, hey, am I exploiting right now or am I not? Like we started off talking about the Borg cube stuff. Like, did I just take over a Borg cube in 8.5 minutes by barely firing a shot? I did. Okay, that's an exploit. That's not a tactic, right? It was never the game obviously was never designed to have an end game NPC taken over without like barely firing a shot in 8 minutes. So there's a degree of common sense that needs to be used for these things and you know, I just want to really address that, because as we find more and more things that people are doing that are exploity, you know, if it's a concrete cheat, you're banned. If it is a gray area exploit, you'll be kicked. If you continue, you'll be banned. And you know, it has to be that way. Like, we gotta kind of buckle up and get strict on it, because it ruins the gameplay for all the other players who are playing legitimately. Some players know about an exploit, they just choose not to use it, and then other ones are, and then now they're at a disadvantage, right? So then what that does is it makes them saying, well, fuck it, I'm going to do an exploit because I'm not going to be the only one not getting this perk or whatever. So really, guys, please try to use your common sense to determine if something is an exploit or not. And in the rules of the server, which is on the wiki, if it feels a little shady or exploity, it probably is. And if you want confirmation, make a ticket, and we will tell you, yes, that's an exploit, and no, that's not an exploit. And if it is an exploit, then we also can document and put it on the roadmap to fix it, so that people can't use it in that fashion to exploit. So another concern that was brought up was some players, and again, this is all based on everyone's perception. Some players think progression is too slow. Takes too long to progress on this server. Others think it's just right. Others thinks it's easy. So whoever's on the call now, does anyone think that it's too hard to progress? Minus the NPC situation that we talked about already, where multiple NPCs spawn and then it's, you know, hard to kill one successfully and take the reward because 3 others spawn. And obviously, minus that, does anyone feel like progression is too long or too difficult?
I will say there is a jump in hardness and difficulty between the tech levels. It is kind of a steep jump when you go into the tier 2 NPCs from Common Tech. With Common Tech, that is. At least that's my experience.
Yeah. Part of the problem there is just the size of that common reactor. I mean, you have to move to a much larger ship, and then you never need that much reactor space ever again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I've noticed is the change between T0, T1 ships to T2, T3, T4 ships, but you don't necessarily get that next step up from harvesting T0 ships to T1 ships. You go, like I just had a couple days ago, I just had an issue. I'm a little behind on than the rest of my faction, but I don't take from people ever. It kills me too. So I went from harvesting T0 ships to try to take it on a T1 ship, and it took me. I ran around for 3 hours trying to get a T1 to spawn, and all I kept getting was T4s, T5s. It was nightmare fuel.
The ship's
And
too overpowered then.
every time I would get a spawn in, it would put me right into overload.
So how are you spawning a T5 ship?
Yeah. How?
And
With
not
what
being
ship?
able to kill a T1.
What sort of fit ship configuration can't spawn a T6 with T1 gear?
Okay, so I can
T1
actually
power.
answer that.
Let's say that. Let's just straight out say that.
I can actually answer that because I did it by mistake. I was spawning tier 4s and I don't even have anything but common tech. There are ways to increase your threat level, and if you say slap a rotor down and slap a panel to it, that will increase your threat level by 2.5 times, give or take. If you slap multiple rotors down doing this, trying to force something like a T1 to spawn instead of a T0, you can actually throw your threat level so high, it'll spawn a T6 on top of you without a problem.
Well,
These things can
additional beacons.
But that becomes a player issue, right? Like you're generating way too much threat than you should be for the ship you want to spawn.
Oh, I agree. I was just saying I could answer the question on how it happens. I didn't say it was a good idea.
Yeah. So essentially, if the problem is that T4s are spawning, well, first off, if a T4 spawns, that means a tier 1 will never spawn because you're well over the limit. If a T4 spawns, you'll get a tier 2 or tier 4. So that's why you probably never experienced a tier 1
So, like,
because you're
Is
over
that
level.
desired, by the way?
Having more, like, would it break gameplay for us to have, like, the thresholds for threat levels on the AI spawning? Because
they're on the wiki.
I haven't been on the wiki since you guys updated it. I've been away for 3 days, so
Yeah, go check out the wiki.
So yeah, the
under
T2s and 4s have no maximum threat. Is that by design? I assume it is.
Yes, because that's why when you have a tier 6 spawning, that you also can get a tier 4 or tier 2. Is there's no maximum, so there's no cap. So that means tier 2s and 4s will spawn if a tier 6 can spawn. And then we talked about it earlier where we're going to change the percentages so that there's a 50% chance that tier 6 will spawn and only 25% that the 2 or 4 will spawn.
Also, and I don't know if this was already brought up, but with the shield mod, even when shunting to forward shields, I was still getting 50% penetration.
Are you dumping
Like
the
I
waste
had
and properly modulating?
Well, yeah, I was properly modulating. I wasn't really dumping the waste heat, but because it wasn't building any heat.
That's
I wasn't getting any icon for the heat, like the little balls in the center of the shield thing. I wasn't getting those.
There is a button for it if you do venting.
Is it what for it?
For a heat, like heat sink.
Oh yeah. So what I would suggest, if you're having some challenges, it seems like it's a mechanic issue of and strategy. So try to ask, in chat to see if someone, or even on the chat on the call here, if someone wants to offer their expertise to help them out about, shield modulation and weapons and threat and how it all works on STC. Please, give them a helping hand. All right. The next one was. So I want to talk a little bit about toxicity. So toxicity in public channels, which is pretty much every channel that's not your private faction channel or alliance. So try to lower the toxicity in general. I understand people get frustrated and bugs happen and, people get upset because, you spent a lot of time and effort into things. It's very frustrating. I totally understand. But when you air those grievances out in public, then it affects all the people that it didn't originally affect. So if you had a huge concern and you're venting, say in general, about something that's happened and you're all pissed off, then what happens is all these new players or even other players that just don't experience the same issue are going to be affected by that negativity. And then now it taints their viewpoints on things. And then the second that they do encounter it, even though they've never encountered it before, it adds fuel to the fire, because now they're just going to be like, well, this was, this is exactly what so and so said 2 weeks ago. This is ridiculous. And then they're going to lose their minds, right? It kind of gives permission for people to freak out. So just try to curb the little bit of toxicity. If there are bugs, again, make a ticket. If we don't have it in the ticket and it's not on the list on the wiki, it's not going to get fixed. So you can get upset as much as you guys want, or anyone, but we can't address it if it's not fixed. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm holding the meeting today with you guys is, there wasn't a huge amount of content to go through. It was more about, talking to the community and getting your feedback by playing the game for the first month and seeing how we can tweak things to make it better. And as long as you communicate them, I'm always here listening, and I'm obviously going to make changes if they need to be made. Last thing I want to talk about before we end the call is I've been pondering with the idea of doing like a public test realm or a private test realm, where certain people who are willing to test certain new features and game mechanics would have early access to those game mechanics and would be willing to use them and try to break it and report back anything that they see, so that we can fix things before they go into production. So fully, like before they go into the live server. This will help future enhancements be smoother. The only reason I haven't done it so far is for obvious reasons, where people could say that it gives an unfair advantage to people who get to try out those features before others. And it does, essentially, because now you have a more intricate knowledge of how something works before the rest of the public does, because you're on this kind of QA team. But in the end, it'll help the server entirely, because launches will be much smoother for future content. Now, these people would be, you'd have to kind of really want this and apply to it, and have a level of trustworthiness, because what I don't want happening is what happens in a lot of other public test realms, like what's famous, World of Warcraft, right? They're famous for it. They very often have a public test realm where people can play with the latest version of the game before it's released to the public. And what people do is the opposite. Some people go in and they report, hey, this is broken, this is not working, this is an exploit, you need to fix this. Some people are like, oh man, I just found a sick exploit, I'm keeping this on the DL so that when it launches, I get the advantage. So there, there's so much to so many things. So what do you guys think of that? Do you think we should go down the road of some sort of private test realm where I could spin up a server with the updates, and whoever wants to apply for this special access would be able to, and try stuff out and try to break it and report back? It is work for you guys, like for the volunteer, because you're expected not just to play the game, like you need to contribute and tell me things, not just stay silent and have access and learn how to play. Like that's not the reason for it. It's to make sure it launches without error. But anyways, what do you guys think?
In my experience with test servers that for testing upcoming patches and stuff like that, is exactly what you just said, where people will test things, not report them, or worse, you open it up, you're paying for the server, two people log in, and of the two people, one guy says something.
Mm-hmm.
That's still a gain in the right direction, though. Like, undoubtedly, you'll have some non-zero percentage of people just trying to take an advantage, but they can't stop the ones that want, a nice, balanced, quote unquote, fair server from reporting the stuff that they find. So, I don't think that there's any negative into doing that.
Anyone else have any opinions?
I'd be willing to test it, but I think it would be nice to have some kind of formatting for it. So maybe someone that's done QA game testing before can make a like a list or something for us to go through to help people that have not done it before help test.
Yeah, for sure. If I did go ahead with this, all the functionality would be laid out in a document of how it works, and then your job would be to go in and use it. And then if it's not working as intended, or some people are really great at finding exploits, right? Like, hey, what if I do this while this is happening? What will happen? What if I do a fixed ship while standing on one foot and farting? Like, they'll think of something like that, and then they'll find a way that breaks the game. That's what I'm looking for. Does it work as intended? Yes. And does it work if you do some shady stuff, trying on purpose to break it? And what's the outcome of that? So yeah, I could put something like that together. But
make sure you get everyone to sign an NDA.
Yeah. Well, true. Any future content.
NDA would be pushing the legal system a little far. More like an agreement, access to this. Well, you can't, spill the beans about that.
Right. Yeah. Basically, we're not going to make a 500-page NDA, but there would be obviously an agreement that anything you learn stays to you, right? And not to share this knowledge with the public and all that kind of stuff.
Or other testers, because that could skew their experience, their bias. That could skew a bias on them too. If you find anything, it gets reported to whoever's taking care of that type of stuff, whether it be you, Sarg, or one of your admins.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Unless it has content that needs multiple players.
Because there, like for instance, there's several ways to crash Space Engineers, the server itself, because the way the computational math that the game goes through to calculate damage, you can overload that with several different mechanics. Some people agree. Sometimes some of them are better than others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I will give it some more thought and see if I put something together for maybe the next iteration after the territories are done, and then I'll get a feeler out there. If anyone is interested on this call in doing and helping the server out by volunteering to do some QA and try to break stuff on a private shard of the server, then DM me and let me know you're interested, and I'll keep that on the side so that when I do roll it out, I can, keep you guys in mind. And if no one's interested, then I don't need to worry about doing anything, because if I build it and no one does it, there's no point in building it.
Well, So I've been bouncing around from 6 to 5 to 13, back to 6, back to deep space and everything like that. And I loaded in, and there was a couple starter grids within render distance, and the conveyor junction spam on most of these grids is fucking killing me. Like, would it hampen or harpen server sim or anything to have like AQD conveyors?
They're already there. People just don't use them.
Yeah.
May Clang punish those who use conveyor junctions?
Are you talking about
Exactly.
the titanium ones?
No, not titanium ones, standard ones. I'm not rich. I don't have the resources for titanium ones.
Well, there's several different options, right? You have the reinforced vanilla, you have regular vanilla, you have the Ganymede non-titanium, and you have Ganymede tritanium. So the spam, adding another mod of conveyors is not going to lessen spam. It just
I
makes
haven't really looked through the Ganymede ones. Is there those weird shaped ones like a corner conveyor and stuff like that?
Yeah, they do. They do have the shapes, but they're not airtight.
See,
Momo, what ships are you talking about?
Which ones are not airtight?
The Ganymede, the tube ones.
They should be. All Ganymede should be airtight. They don't look airtight, but they're airtight.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna have to take a look through them then, because I've built some really heinous things that destroy my soul, and I want to remedy that because I don't build heinous things.
Yeah, take a look at them. There's even longer tubes. So there's like a long tube that's like 5 blocks long that goes straight. So there's options there. All right. Well, that's all I have for today, guys. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you playing the game and supporting us always. Again, special thanks to all our Patreons that actually make this happen, because running a server isn't cheap, and running 5 of them is even less cheap. As well as, we do donate to people that help us for special things, like special shout out to Crunch, who's helped us a lot with the whole territory stuff. He essentially built it himself out of what we requested, and and we like to kick back to Crunch when we can, financially, to help us out. So yeah, thanks again, and yeah, fly safe out there. All right, see you later, guys.
In a bit.
See you, Sark.